So now to the C# backend, we first will create a new project here. So from the template, we will type on the top Web API. Then it will give you an option ASP.NET Core Web API. We will select that and then hit next. Here in the name of the project, we will say Alexa birthday tracker. Okay, and this is backend, so we will say BE backend. Then we'll hit next here. Don't change anything here. We'll keep it as is. And then we'll hit create to create the project. So once our project is created, you will see that there are some files which are already present, like weatherforecast.cs, and within controllers also there's a weather forecast controller. So we'll keep these as is because they're not going to hurt us. We'll remove them later on. So next, what we will do is we will just run this once to make sure that everything is working so far. So this is how it loads into your browser when you run it for the first time. The interface that you are seeing here is a testing interface. If you have worked with web APIs, it is important for you to test your web API while you are developing. Swagger gives a great user-friendly interface for testing web APIs. So this is an API which was there by default. What you can do is you can try it out, send some requests and responses and see how it works. Okay. So anyways, we are not worried about weather forecast for now. So we will go ahead and add our own controller and see how it works. Here inside controller, what we will do is we'll create our own controller. Right click, add controller. Now we'll select this as a MVC empty controller because we are going to write all the code inside. And now we need to put a name for it. For the name, we will say Alexa controller. Once you do that, it will create the Alexa controller for you. So the controller is created. I will call this process, and on top of this handler method, we will mark it as HTTP post, and we will give it a route called process. What we'll also do is we will mark this controller itself a API controller, and we'll give the route as the controller name. So with that done, we have created the bare bone of this controller, and we'll run the application again. So now when Swagger loads, you can see that there is this Alexa method also available with a post request which we just created. So now we know that our controller is working. Now let's close this again and come back to our controller. Here, if you see, the return or response here is a I action result. Alexa does not understand these things. Okay, so we will have to now make this method compatible with Alexa. So to do that, you will have to go to dependencies, packages, and go to manage NuGet packages. We'll search and install a library which actually makes things easier to work with. So Alexa.NET by Tim here. This is the library that we are going to use. We'll install this and say OK. Good. Now let's close this NuGet window and come back here. So Alexa sends you a request which is in a specific format. So you need an object to actually capture that JSON request so that you can process it. That we will store in an object called skill request. Now the skill request is something that is part of the library that we just installed. So you can just add an import statement using Alexa.NET request. So now it knows what it is and we will call it input. This is where our request will be captured, which we will get from the Alexa skill. Response again needs to be a specific format that Alexa will understand. That again comes from skill response class. So the skill response class we will again import from the Alexa.NET library. Now at this point, our method signature matches what Alexa expects. So now we'll have to fix what's inside this method. So what we will do here is we will create an empty response just to test things out. So skill response output equal to new skill response. we have the output object here. Here it's important that you set output dot version to 1.0. So these are some of the requirements that Alexa needs. So we will have to follow those. So now what we'll do is we'll have to build a response body. So we'll make a output dot response as new response body. So this is where your response content will go. Before we send a response, we need to put some data inside that response, right? So that we will do using output dot response dot output speech. Alexa is going to say something to you when the response comes, right? So that will be output speech. Here we will for now do a plain text output speech. It takes an argument here, and that argument we will say, hello, this works. And now we will return this output as a response to Alexa. So return output. So that is all you need to capture a request and send a response back to Alexa. But before we actually go ahead and deploy and test with the actual Alexa, which is hosted on cloud, we will test it locally. For that, we will run this again. So this is loaded. So as I said in the last video, we will need the JSON that this testing tool gives us to test our backend when we are building it in our local machine. So what I did here, I just issued the start birthday tracker command again, and then I got this launch request. I will copy this request in its entirety and use it in our local testing. Before we go there, I would just scroll down and show you what we actually care about. You can ignore whatever is there in this JSON text for now. All we are worried about this request part. In the request part, as you can see now, it's sending me type as a launch request. So this tells the backend that someone is trying to start the application. So I will just copy this whole thing and come back here, click on this and say try it out, and you need to paste it. Now even if you paste it, it's not going to work. It will give you an error. I will show you. So when you execute this, you will see that there is a 500 error. It will say that I cannot convert this JSON to the object that you expect here. To fix that, we'll have to make a couple of other changes. So you will have to go to your packages and go to manage NuGet package again. There you will have to search with Newtonsoft. Don't select the first one. Select the one which says Microsoft ASP.NET Core.mvc.Newtonsoft JSON. Install that. Once that is installed, you need to go to your startup.cs. Here you will find a method called configure services. You need to add this service which will actually convert this JSON that Alexa is giving you so that it can be deserialized to your class object here. So for that, I will add this line here, add controllers dot add Newtonsoft JSON. Now we run this again. Now this time we try to test it again, try it out, Control A, Control V, replace the entire request and hit execute. We are getting a 200 success code, and we are getting the response that we are sending. So as you can see, whatever values we had set here, the version, the text, everything is now enclosed within a response format that Alexa will understand. And this is being done by the Alexa.NET library. So with that, we have a working backend which actually sends something back to Alexa. So in the next video, we will see how we will deploy this to Azure and connect this to our Alexa application and see whether this hello, this works is something that Alexa can read and speak out. So let's move over to the next video.